Steel roofs are fast becoming the material of choice for homes in all areas of the country, and it's no wonder. Steel roofs not only outlast traditional roofing materials, they're also lightweight and are Class A fire rated. And because steel roofs are easy to install, easy to clean, and easy to maintain, they can save a homeowner both money and time over many years of dependable service.
BHP Steel Building Products is the industry leader in steel roofing systems in the West. BHP's Skyline roofing system, with our zinc aluminum subcoating, offers the industry's best corrosion resistance. These attractive roofs are coated with advanced factory baked-on finishes, and they come in a wide range of colors. They're designed for years of trouble-free beauty, and they're so durable. They're backed by our 50-year residential limited warranty. This video, along with BHP's installation manual, should provide most of the information you'll need to install your steel roof. Note that although Skyline roofing can be installed by the experienced do-it-yourselfer, for best results, we recommend using a professional metal roofing installer. Now, before getting started, you'll need to make sure you have the right tools to do the job. So here's a quick rundown of the equipment we'd recommend. You'll need a 2,500 RPM screw gun with a depth-sensing nose piece and 5/16" hex head nut setters, and number 2 Phillips bits. Tin snips for cutting panels, snips for making right cuts, left cuts, and center line cuts. You'll need electric metal shears for general metal cutting, chalk line for aligning panels and marking cuts, a blind rivet tool, turn-up tool to hand form the ends of panels, scratch-awl to mark the steel panels, utility knife, electric drill, caulking gun, string line, tape measure at least 25 feet in length, locking pliers or duckbill pliers for clamping and bending parts, and a hammer and rubber mallet. Now, we suggest you use at least 2 other people to help you install your new roof. 2 crew members can be on the roof doing the installation. The 3rd person should be on the ground cutting and passing up freshly trimmed panels. We recommend you never cut panels on the roof. Metal fragments can scratch roof panels, and tiny metal shavings left behind will rust quickly and damage the paint. BHP panels for residential construction come in 12, 16, or 18-inch widths in different colors, and in 24 or 26 gauge steel. Wider widths mean fewer panels, and with less overlapping ribs to connect, you can reduce your installation time. When your panels are delivered, unload them with a forklift or a boom lift, allowing no longer than 10 feet on each side of the pick point. For longer panels, you must use a spreader bar or hand unload. Check to make sure they're blemish-free. You'll want to check the quantity delivered against the shipping list. Notify your BHP representative of any damage or shortage at the time of delivery, and make a notation on the shipping documents. Store the panels in a dry, well-ventilated area away from traffic. Elevate one end of the bundle so that any moisture can run off, and avoid storing panels in direct contact with the ground. You'll want to handle panel bundles and individual panels with care. Longer bundles and panels may require several workers spaced along 2 or more pick points to avoid buckling and bending. Skyline roofing panels are delivered with strippable plastic coating over the painted surface on the female rib of the panels. This helps to prevent damage during manufacture and shipping. Avoid exposing this plastic coating to sunlight. Don't leave the plastic coating on any longer than 2 weeks after delivery, and make sure to remove the coating before installing your panels. BHP supplies all the proper fasteners you'll need to affix panels to the deck, to the trim, or to other panels. These fasteners are specially coated to withstand corrosion. BHP's exposed fasteners also have sealing washers and heads colored to match the parts they attach. This number 8 by 1 inch modified truss head wood screw should be used to fix panels to deck or fix trim to a wood substrate. Number 8 by 1 inch screws can be used on both 24 and 26 gauge panels. Number 10 by 1 inch screws like this should be used on 24 gauge panels whenever there is a need for increased wind uplift resistance. A number 12 by 3/4 inch stitch screw comes in handy when you need to join panels to panels or trim to panels. The number 14 by 1 inch hex head milled point screw or metal to wood screw is used to fix panels to deck at valleys and eaves. And this 1/8 inch diameter stainless steel blind rivet is used to make trim to trim attachments. A few reminders before you start to install your Skyline roofing panels. Make sure to wear clean, non-marking soft-soled shoes. This way you can walk on the newly installed panels without leaving shoe marks or scratches. You should always be equipped with standard safety equipment and keep in mind the following safety tips. Never walk on panels until they're in place and all the fasteners have been installed. Never walk on the panel seams. Walk only in the flat areas. Now, if the panels are wet, frosty, oily, or dusty, don't walk on them. They are slippery. If it's windy, wait for the wind to die down. Working with sheet metal in the wind can be dangerous. When you're cutting panels, it's best to wear safety glasses and gloves to protect yourself from cuts and abrasions. And since you'll be working off the ground, you'll want to exercise caution at all times. On steep slopes, we recommend tie-off equipment to prevent falling off the roof. And follow OSHA recommended safety procedures for the construction industry. To cut panels and flashings, use tin snips or electric metal shears, and make sure that all cutting edges are sharp so you can get clean cuts with a minimum of paint scraping. If you do any cutting on the roof, make sure that you remove all shavings and fragments as you work. You don't want to leave any foreign debris underneath the panels. Later on, they may end up leaving an impression, or even worse, a puncture. During installation, you may accidentally scratch the surface of a Skyline panel. Your first instinct might be to apply touch-up paint to hide the blemish. However, BHP Steel Building Products does not recommend the application of touch-up paint due to the different weathering characteristics of factory and field-applied paint products. Use of touch-up paint will result in aesthetic problems. If you have a panel that is severely scratched and the base metal is exposed, replace it. Now that's why it's always a good idea to order extra panels of the longest length. Before installing the Skyline panels, your roof surface must be properly prepared. In the case of a roof installation over new construction, Skyline roofing gives its best appearance on a flat substrate such as a continuous rigid deck or underlayment, like structural grade plywood at least a ½ inch thick. It can also be applied on skip sheeting. We recommend a minimum of 3-in-12 slope. That is, the roof line should drop 3 inches for every foot of run. Cover the entire roof deck with 30-pound felt paper. This will act as a moisture retarder between the roof deck and the steel panels. Begin at the eave and roll the felt horizontally. Overlap each successive course by 3 inches. Use roofing nails or staples to secure the felt to the roof every 12 inches. Make sure you position nails or staples near the fringe of the felt so the edges won't roll up. Also be sure that nails and staples are flush with the surface as possible. Otherwise, your panels will end up with lumps and bulges. When you come to the end of a roll, make sure to overlap the next roll by at least 6 inches. Now, if you live in an area where the weather is severe, we'd recommend a cold-applied membrane such as WR Grace Ice and Water Shield. Skyline steel panels may be installed over an existing roof, too. Check your local building codes to determine how many layers of old roofs are allowed before tear-off is required. In any case, do not apply panels over roofs with structural damage or trapped moisture. If damage is discovered, tear off and repair. For best results, Skyline roofing requires a smooth, clean, flat, moss-free surface as a substrate. If you want to apply Skyline panels over your existing roof, talk to your contractor or your BHP representative. They can help you determine your options. No matter if you're installing your Skyline panels on new construction or over an old roof, the base must be entirely free from protruding objects like nails and from debris like wood chips. The installation of Skyline roofing and all related flashings are recommended in the following order: eave trims and pre-hung gutters, W valleys, Skyline roofing panels, gable trims, sidewall flashings, end wall flashings, ridge caps, that is vented, standard, and hip, and post-hung gutters and downspouts. In other words, installing Skyline roofing would be the same as any other roofing material when it comes to the flashings. You start at the gutter and work your way to the ridge line. So, let's begin the installation with the eave trim. You'll need to make some minor modifications to the eave trim before it's installed. You'll want to wrap the eave around the gable fascia. To accomplish this, you need to remove 1 inch of material from both the top edge of the eave flashing and the drip section, leaving only the face of the flashing. Using duckbill pliers, fold the remaining 1 inch flap back 90 degrees to box the gable. Remove the bottom half of the hem on the inside flashing only. Attach the eave trim to the roof deck by securing it with roofing nails evenly spaced at 24 inches on center. The next step is to open the opposite hem of the flashing to allow for the connection of the next eave trim by carefully using a screwdriver or scratch-awl. Caulk and slide the flashings together. Reclose the hems with a pair of duckbill pliers. Continue this process until the eave installation is complete. For added protection in the valley of the roof, run a second layer of roofing felt up the center line with a minimum of 18 inches extending on both sides of the valley. You'll need to field modify the valley flashing so it fits securely into place. Starting at the low end, trim and notch the flashing so it overhangs the eave flashing by 1 inch. Fold the tabs down 90 degrees so as to hook the eave trim. Caulk and lap the subsequent valley flashings a minimum of 8 inches. Run 2 rows of butyl mastic tape on each side of the valley that are parallel to the center line. The first row should be placed 6 inches off of the center line, and the second should be placed at 8 inches. Field miter cut the panels holding a minimum of 4 inches back from the center line to allow for proper runoff of rainwater. Larger valleys may be required for use in snow country applications. Attach the Skyline panels to the roof deck and through fasten along the bottom end of the panel at the valley by using number 14 by 1 inch hex head metalwood screws. Evenly place the screws 8 inches from the center line so that they align with the second row of butyl mastic tape. The valley is now secure and watertight. Now you're ready to install your Skyline roofing panels. For residential roofs, Skyline panels come custom cut up to 45 feet long. If your roof requires a longer sheet, you might want to use one of BHP's commercial standard panels. Consult with a BHP representative if you have any questions. The first step in the panel installation process is to place an alignment line along the gable end where the first roof panel is to be installed. This line must be located 1/4 inch from the gable edge of the roof deck and square with the eave line. Down at ground level, have a worker remove the cellophane plastic guard from the first panel. For illustration, the Skyline roofing panels shown here are in 12-inch widths. Pass the panel up to the workers on the roof. Align the female edge of the first panel with the alignment line constructed along the start gable. Allow the panel to overhang the eave by 1 inch. making sure the factory edge of the panel is exposed. Check the uphill end of the panel. If the panel length is correct, it should be about 2 inches down from the peak of the ridge. Now, in the case of a vented ridge, it should be about 2 inches down from the edge of the plywood. Using an electric screw gun, drill number 8 by 1 inch modified truss head screws through the metal flange along the male side of the panel. Recommended fastener spacing can vary from 6 inches to 24 inches on center, depending on the substrate that's used, the climate, and wind conditions. Factory slot spacing may not line up with the recommended fastener spacing. See the panel installation section in BHP's Skyline installation guide for recommended fastener spacing. The thickness of your plywood base will also determine how far apart to space your fasteners. See your manual for details. Screws must be correctly driven to ensure proper seal and holding strength. Do not overdrive or underdrive screws. Screws must be long enough to fully penetrate through the roof decking or penetrate solid lumber at least 1 inch. Now align the second panel's female rib with the male rib of the first panel. Check to make sure that the bottom ends of the panels are aligned at the eave. Then snap the panels together at the seam with light foot or hand pressure, or light taps from a rubber mallet. Don't use a hammer to lock the seams together. That may damage the panels. Work the seam together from the eave end back up towards the ridge. Don't work the seam from the top down or from both ends towards the middle. Once a panel has been screwed in place, it's safe to walk on with soft-soled shoes, but be careful never to step on the ribs. Now, after locking the panel seams together, you can begin to fasten the second panel to the roof with your electric screw gun, just like the first panel. As you install each panel, fasten them along the eave with number 14 by 1 inch metal wood screws in a straight line parallel to the eave and 2 to 3 inches up from the bottom edge of the panel. From here on, the process should proceed rather routinely as you join the male ends of the new panels with the female ends of the panels you've just installed. As you come across penetration such as pipes, chimneys, or roof vents, please refer to the installation guide for flashing around these penetrations. After all the panels have been installed, you're ready to install the gable flashing. Now, once again, there is some field modification that's required if you want a professional-looking job. Refer to the installation guide to find the correct procedures on boxing in the gable at the eave and mitering at the peak to join the gable trim at the ridge. Now, the first thing you want to do is run a line of butyl mastic tape along the bottom edge of the gable trim's top flange. Install the flashing by placing it firmly over the rib of the panel while holding it tight against the gable face. Fasten the flashing through both the top and face flange by using number 14 by 1 inch metal wood screws spaced at 24 inches on center. Be sure that the fasteners in the top flange are protected by the butyl mastic tape. Do not fasten to the panel if a narrow gable trim is used. The end gable trim is installed in the exact same method as the start gable trim. The only exception is that you may have to modify the last Skyline panel depending on where it ends relative to the gable of the roof. Trim the panel even with the edge of the roof. Turn up the pan of the roof with duckbill pliers. This creates an effective water barrier. Open and hook the hems using the same method that was used on the eave trim. You're now ready for the next step. The sidewall flashing is used when a roof plane runs parallel to a wall. The sidewall flashing joins the roof and the wall. The Skyline roofing panels need to be installed prior to the flashing installation. As before, you'll need to modify the first flashing to box in the end-bottom end. The installation of the sidewall flashing is very similar to that of the gable trim. Once again, run a line of butyl mastic tape along the bottom edge of the flange that rests on the top to the panel. Place the flashing firmly on the roofing. Attach the wall flange with roofing nails at 24 inches on center. This flange is under the siding material. And fasten through the flange using number 14 by 1 inch metalwood screws spaced at 24 inches on center. Use the same procedure as before. Open and hook all hems. End wall flashing is used when a roof plane meets a vertical wall. It's quite common for end wall flashing to be used in conjunction with sidewall flashing. In these situations, the sidewall flashing must be installed before the end wall. In any case, the Skyline roofing panels need to be installed prior to the end wall flashing. Hold the panels 1 inch down from the end wall condition. This should give you 1 inch overlap at the eave if the panels are the proper length. The next step is to install the polyethylene formed closure. To ensure its weather tightness, run a bead of gunnable caulking on the bottom and sides of the closure. Apply pressure and squeeze the closure into the caulk. The closure is optional on roof slopes of 3 and 12 or greater. If you skip the polyethylene closure, turn up the pan of the panel and caulk on the sides near the major ribs. Next, run a bead of caulking over the top of the closure and install the solid Z closure. Secure it to the roof deck by fastening the 1 inch flange with either the number 8 or number 14 screws. Note that the same procedures apply for a vented end wall flashing. The roof deck would be held back an additional 2 inches from the end wall. The solid Z would be replaced by a perforated Z, and the polyethylene closure would be omitted. Attach the wall flange to the wall with roofing nails at 24 inches on center. Open and hook hems as described before. Fasten the end wall flashing to the Z closure by using number 12 by 3/4 inch stitch screws at 12 inches on center. The last group of flashings to be installed would be at the hip if it's needed, then the ridge. As with the entire roof, the Skyline panels have been held back 2 inches from the top of the roof deck. In the case of a vented ridge, it should be held back 2 inches down from the edge of the plywood. For a vented ridge situation, the roof deck should be held back 2 inches from each side of the ridge center line. Turn up the pans of the Skyline roofing and apply caulking at the sides near the rib. Attach the 1 inch flange of the perforated Z by using number 12 by 3/4 inch stitch screws spaced at 12 inches on center. The vented ridge will need to be field modified at each end to box it in. Refer to the installation guide for exact procedures. Caulk, lap, and rivet all sequential flashings. Follow the same procedures for the standard hip and ridge flashings. However, don't forget that the standard hip and ridge flashing needs a solid Z closure and a polyethylene formed closure, and the ends do not need to be modified. When you're finished installing your Skyline roof, make sure to clean up any metal shavings or debris on the roof area with a broom or a soft cloth. Your Skyline roof should require little maintenance other than an occasional rinsing off with a hose or the cleaning out of gutters and valleys. Just a note, you may notice that some of your Skyline roofing metal panels display a slight waviness. Well, this effect is commonly referred to as oil canning. It's an inherent characteristic of all flat metal surfaces, and it's not a defect. We hope this video has been helpful in demonstrating how to install Skyline roofing. With so many different roof configurations, we couldn't possibly cover all the variations you may encounter. But we hope this overview will give you a clear idea of the basic installation process. Your BHP Skyline roofing installation and flashings guide includes a number of details we didn't have time for in this video. And for any specific question, your Skyline roofing distributor will be more than happy to assist you.